Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Morning Shot.
Thanks for joining us on Money FM 89.3 with me, Ryan Huang. Singapore is undertaking a major review of its long-term economic strategy. Deputy Prime Minister Gan Kim Yong made the announcement last evening, outlining the formation of 5 new committees, each tasked with addressing a key national priority. These range from strengthening Singapore's global competitiveness to harnessing technology and innovation, boosting entrepreneurship, empowering workers with skills and career resilience and mobility, and managing the impact of economic restructuring on businesses and workers. The move comes in the face of rising tariffs, global uncertainty, and technological disruption. And the government says it wants to hear from businesses, workers, and stakeholders on what needs to change. To dive deeper into these areas and the urgency in addressing some of the pain points confronting Singapore that it needs to prioritize, we've got Seng Wun. He is the economic advisor at CGS International. Uncle Song, good morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning from a very, very cool and kind of wet Chinatown, which is very nice for sleeping.
Very nice. Also nice for a hot breakfast, I suppose, right now.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about what's playing out for Singapore right now, where we have a bit of a reshaping or rethinking or review of what we need to do in order to stay ahead of the game. So this is where we have the ESR, or Economic Strategy Review, where there is now a bit more direction. What do you take away from what's been announced?
I think this wouldn't have happened if not for the U.S. administration sort of wave of tariff announcement, new announcement to come. I suppose geopolitical realignment as well. Now, we have, remember, I think the last time we had transformation or review for industries and sectors in the face of competition and technological challenges, or just ongoing technological shift, 10 years ago when we announced the industry transformation map. You still remember that? It is still ongoing. So that one was in response to just shifting trends or just fast change in trends in technology, which impact automation and digital solution being unfolded. Whereas this one, task force formed, just as we did with COVID, a task force being formed in response to immediate needs of businesses and households. So this is, in that sense, also the immediate need of businesses and households against that very sort of big shift in terms of how global business may be shaped, changed by these tariff announcements from the US side. If it is any other country, probably doesn't matter. But when it impacts to the largest economy and big economic blocks like the Eurozone, then it matters, which is why this is kind of like industry transformation map 2.0 with the added dimension of trade uncertainty due to announcement of tariffs.
Yeah, to your point, we've got a couple done before, the 2010 Economic Strategy Committee, also the 2016 Committee on the Future Economy. So do you see this more as a building on what's been done before, or is this going to be a more structural shift in terms of what's going to be happening and playing out?
Indeed. So this is, in that sense, more urgent because what we clearly know is the impact of higher tariff will have a broader impact on global demand, i.e. slower growth for trade-oriented Singapore that becomes important. Hence, that need to look again of what would be the unfolding impact on industries, on businesses, just global trade in general. What do we need to fine-tune or readjust measures which we thought we might want to do? This is, in that sense, still fluid. It's not like, say, what we have today down in City, the Gallery, the URA one, the draft master plan, urban planning. We know what the hard infrastructure for Singapore in the next 10 to 15 years. Whereas with the terrorism, when an impact on global demand, it greater global uncertainty. So we need to be able to move a bit faster. So industries and sectors or labor will have to be, I suppose, better in tune with what's happening on global demand and whether it is with regard to building up more more sort of business network outside of the US, or accelerate sort of a business connectivity with the rest of the world outside. So you kind of have two parallel lines of so-called work to do with what's happening with the US side. Remember, we had zero tariff because we had US Singapore FTA. Well, that's out the window now. So what will happen with 2.0 with the US, and what will happen with the rest of the world with, that shift, as I said earlier, in terms of geopolitical realignment and a new network of trade.
Okay, let's dive a bit deeper into some of the committee directions. One of them will focus on empowering workers and managing economic restructuring. What would you say are the biggest stress points on the ground right now when it comes to jobs, skills, and wage growth? And of course, you have been on the pulse quite closely.
Well, again, I suppose when it comes down to people, labor, while good problem, while for now many businesses here still talk about wanting more foreign labor because there's still demand within Singapore. Those facing external demand in a different situation where they are more worried about soft demand, and therefore the rush in year-end festive orders may already have been brought forward. So they may have a quieter second half. Whether this pans out remains to be seen. But for now, still the resilient labor market condition, yes, some people are finding a bit longer to find work, but generally you still have more people being able to find work. Yes, take a bit longer, but there's still more jobs than can be filled from the local resident force. So for now, that confidence is still supporting domestic consumption. Yes, there's some wariness in the air. In Kopitiam that we sit down and chit-chat, and we all know who we always point our fingers at, but people are still, in that sense, somewhat comforted that there's still jobs and there's still order flow, particularly on the local front side, which is why you see, the property launches over the weekend still being filled up. Confidence is still there. The question then is going forward. So I suppose for now it is getting ready as far as the community is concerned with what will happen should both external demand and local demand, when confidence cool further against the backdrop of slower growth. And this is where I suppose it comes back to what had been done earlier with the industry transformation map with capital training in terms of whether jobs are still in the industry. So it still boils down to job. What kind of jobs are still being created? Others are being restructured. I suppose it's as simple as that. But clearly, skill upgrading remains key.
Talking about jobs, right? One of the 5 focus areas is to boost entrepreneurship. What is your take on the level of risk appetite right now, risk-taking in Singapore's economy? What sort of structural or cultural shifts do you think we need to look at more closely? One of the more talk about pain points these days is rent makes it a very tough environment for people to operate right now.
Yeah, I suppose, again, it's still the case. It is still this whole issue of whether, there is still a resilient demand that people are still opening new businesses than shutting down. Case in point, F&B, which you and I know are close to our heart. Yes, we do see more closure, whether it's at the restaurant end or whether it is at the cafe end. But we still see people willing to come in. There's still more opening of restaurants and just general F&B licenses than closing, just because there is that confidence as well. So that then comes back to the rental side. So for entrepreneurship or just existing businesses, there is this complaint of whether there should be rent control, which I don't think is a good idea because it can distort, or whether, rents have peaked and therefore cool down. So when it comes down to entrepreneurship in tiny Singapore, perhaps one of the key things really is yes, you may want to try something, then you are going to be in a case of whether you need lots of capital, whether you need lots of labor, well, hard to get the labor side, rental side, whether you can find premises, etc. So these are perhaps some of the challenges as, I suppose, the Singapore economy and the rest of us still evolve against a backdrop of constant technological shift and the challenge it brings along. I would say entrepreneurship is one thing. There are clearly more people wanting to take the risk to be their own boss, making it easier. Sometimes it's easier said than done.
Okay. Now, of course, this ESR is a long-term review. Recommendations only due in the middle of next year. What will you be watching out for in the near term to gauge whether we are on the right track? What sort of metrics should we be focusing on? GDP, productivity, re-employment rates, innovation metrics, happiness levels. What is worth watching?
All these things in terms of pulse of the ground. I guess it's really going to be a case of what's going to be happening with demand in the rest of the world. We know that we will certainly be seeing more countries trying to, put simply, hook up to expand market opportunity, to look for new markets to sell the product and services into. Again, come back to our earlier issue of entrepreneurship, whether it is entrepreneurship with regards to selling goods and services into Singapore, or whether trade mission and sell their goods and services into, some maybe more established country or countries which already have trade links with Singapore, but again, looking to expand because we clearly don't know to what extent the global uncertainty will translate into the global demand situation. I think whether it is our local agency, whether it's the IMF or the Asian Development Bank or other agencies, we clearly have seen, the first half of this year, growth has been coming in better than expected because of generally front loading. Second half, all the Christmas stuff has been shipped out. Will there still be stuff to be shipped? And clearly that depends on what's happening in the big developed economies, US, Europe, or even in China, whether the demand situation is still stable or whether it's cooling down. So in terms of what the committees and the members will do, what's happening in the rest of the world will matter a lot because that will shape to what extent how hard they may have to work to get connections in the rest of the world going. And clearly what we need to do at home is still about, to some extent, the industry transformation mass accelerated, especially with, I suppose, labor skills, labor market and business practices, with digital solution and automation still being stepped up. So I suppose it's more of what we had done before with an eye on a more uncertain global picture for the next, we don't know, medium, short term, just reflecting the ongoing impact of either whether it's higher tariff or higher inflation, but perhaps slower global demand. So it's a more challenging environment against, as I say, also geopolitical risk, which has increased over the past year.
Yep, lots in play here as we look forward to the recommendations next year with the Economic Strategy Review update that has just been announced. And helping us to break it down this morning is Seng Wun. He is the Economic Advisor at CGS International. Uncle Song, thanks as always for your time and, wishing you a great breakfast ahead and a great day.
Enjoy. Thanks to everybody. Good night, good evening, and good morning.
All right, see you next time.
Bye.
Stay Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.